Welcome into the Husker247 podcast. I'm Mike Schaefer, joined by Michael Bruntz, Brian Christopherson. We are Husker247. It is officially game week. And so that means we're going to make predictions. We're going to go game by game. If you guys want to toss in random in-game predictions besides your score prediction, we can do that as well, we'll keep track of it. We'll see how we do at the end of the year. Before we get there, though, let's get a few thoughts on the depth chart. Nebraska released their depth chart on Monday. Matt Rhule spoke opening press conference, so let's get a few thoughts on those. Bruntz, we'll start with the depth chart. You had a few thoughts up on the website even a day later. What stands out to you now as you look at what Nebraska has on the depth chart heading into the UTEP game?
Yeah, I didn't find anything super surprising. I mean, I think everybody who we kind of assumed would be there was there. Obviously the addition of Ramir Stewart, that was notable as kind of the backup rover. And then Derek Branch was certainly not somebody that we had probably on the list. But I mean, I think everything else kind of broke about how I would have expected it to. It's interesting. I think when you look at the wide receiver spot and the defensive line spots, aside from the slot piece of it on the wide receiver group, I mean, I feel like you could kind of list those guys like 1 through 6, 1 through 7, with how guys are going to play and how they're going to rotate, and kind of similar with the defensive line. I mean, I guess in my mind, it always kind of had like Riley Van Poppels behind Nash Hutmaker. He's listed behind, I think, Ty Robinson. Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to rotate so heavily there that I don't know that it really matters much. But, I think you can see pretty clearly how Nebraska's upgraded its talent at certain groups. I mean, when you at that wide receiver group, you've got Alex Bullock, who played almost 700 snaps last year, is your third wide receiver at one spot. I mean, that's a pretty, I think they've done a pretty good job of building talent in there.
Are those Bruntz the two most talented position groups on the roster, or the deepest? How would you describe that?
I would say those are the two deepest. I think they're the most talented too. I mean, I think in some ways the strength of each group is kind of reflected by the depth that they have. I mean, I think Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair are going to be fantastic additions, but when a guy like Malachi Coleman is third on one of those sides, like that kind of tells you the amount of talent that they have.
What do you make of the running back thing? The 4 oars, 3 oars. You only need 3.
Not particularly surprising based on what Matt Rhule had kind of said. What was it, last Friday? Basically that, you've got 4 guys that are all about even right now. Nobody's really, put themselves ahead of the group. And I had kind of, I think I said this last week, where I kind of expected that was going to be a decision that wasn't going to be final till probably like conference play in terms of who emerges there and who, it is kind of, because I think they're trying to get 2. Like they want 2 guys to separate themselves from the group. I don't think we're going to know who those guys are until, Illinois week. And then, by that point, maybe you have injuries playing a little bit of a role, who's healthy, that kind of thing. So it's always funny when you have that many oars, because it's like, okay, well, somebody just make a damn decision. But I think it's been a little bit difficult with that group to really put somebody at the top of the pecking order.
BC, choose your 2. What 2 emerge? It's a prediction podcast. Do you get to make a prediction?
I think Emmett and Gabe, but I think Ramir is still going to have like that niche spot where he'll get some touches. That's my prediction. I don't have any strong reason for it. Other than I've kind of been a supporter of when Irvin is healthy, even early last year. I think he showed he could bust some tackles and be sort of that fourth quarter guy for him. So that's why I put him in there. And I just like Emmett. I think Emmett's one of those guys everybody always tries to put a ceiling on. And then he goes out there in the games and he keeps raising it. And so I totally leave open the possibility he could do that again this year.
Bruntz, you got a different two?
No, I think right now where things stand, I would go with that. I mean, I think they're looking for two plus for lack of a better phrase, a gadget guy. And I think Ramir probably fits the gadget guy role with the ability to also slide in and, carry 10 times a game if they need him to. I mean, without a bigger kind of sample size on Dante Dowdell, I tend to kind of think of him in my head as a little bit towards the back of that group. And also because, I mean, he's had to make up a lot of ground. I mean, I think the fact that he was even listed in that group with an or is a bit of a testament to the work he's done, because I don't know that at the start of fall camp necessarily that he would have been there.
Yeah, I can't explain it. I just feel like by the end of the season, Ramir Johnson's going to be the most utilized or valuable out of that group. I think partially for as much as they may end up passing, his pass protection skills, the fact that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I don't think you have to use him like a traditional running back to glean value out of him. I think out of their careers thus far, he's had by far the biggest game and most production in a key game. So I think Ramir. So give me Johnson and Johnson as the guys that emerge. I will bet against Gabe Irvin's ability, I guess, to stay healthy a little bit. Though I think they're going to end up. I agree with you guys. I think they're going to end up using 3 of the 4. I think Dowdell is probably the one that's the least likely to emerge out of that group. But here's the thing. I mean, they've needed a different running back in October and November every year since 2020, basically, or even 2019 to a degree. So we'll see what that kind of looks like when we get into conference play. But I thought that was notable. BC Rhule spoke on Monday as well. Obviously hit on a lot of the depth chart stuff, hit on some of what we just talked about. What else did you take away from Nebraska's coach?
Sort of a theme that carried over into the game week, which was no surprise, that I felt the strongest about him stressing this offseason is basically now, can this be a team? He loves this team day to day. I think you guys would agree. Like, he loves how they grind and go at it. And he praised like their training camp, as not disappointing them one day even. So the question now is, can they be a team that plays on Saturday like you practice on Tuesday, basically? Like, can you get out there and not let the other layers of, the cameras and the lights and a full stadium get in your head and detract from your play? And if they can be that group now that is consistent like they practice, I think he feels like that's going to carry over very well into the games and into the win column, but they just have to go do it now. So that was one thing. I guess beyond that, no shock, but him just he was asked, it was a fair question about like, ease Dylan Rhule into it. And he's like, no, not at all. And just the way he answered that, let you know everything about that. It's just a different ball game this year. Like I wrote this in a takeaways thing the other day. But you think back to the Maryland game when it was 3rd and goal on the 5 and it was Chuba in there and you didn't have a lot of trust in that. And so everybody's complaining or debating if they should have just run the ball and kicked the field goal. It's just new this year where I don't think people want to see that. They want to see Dylan Rhule throw on 3rd and goal from the 5 in a situation like that and let him grow, because there's a belief in his talents, I think, not only from the coaches, but from the fan base. So that's interesting to me, just how that dynamic has completely shifted on us.
BT, I thought a lot of the we're not going to let him just dip his toe in kind of thing reminded me of last year when the conversation was about, do you want Jeff Sims to slide? Do you, I just think Rhule wants his guys to be as aggressive as they can be most of the time. Like, he doesn't strike. And that's what sort of made the end of the Wisconsin game so surprising in a way, is that he seems like he's a fairly aggressive coach. And so when they got all conservative with 2 minutes left and driving on Wisconsin's side of the field, that sort of struck me as odd, because he does seem like the kind of guy that when he has a chance to go win it on the football field, that's what Matt Rhule wants to do. And so I think he's just aggressive by nature. And so I think he was coaching against that at times with the roster they had and the situation they had personnel-wise on offense last year. So I, too, am not surprised that he they're not going to hold anything back with Rhule. That being said, it would make a lot of sense to me that you try to get him some easy throws and some comfort plays early, just to establish some confidence in that game against UTEP.
The biggest difference for Nebraska football to me, if there's going to be one this year, is actually what you're talking about all year, is if Rhule, which he did in the spring game really well. And that's why I was just like, yes, we've been waiting for this. It was like the short screens, the intermediate stuff where it's just like in rhythm. It should be a layup, but it hasn't been in the past. It's been a brick, or it's been at someone's feet. Or the guy catches it at his shoe tops and he has to get, and he gets hit for no gain. Like, I feel like this offense, as much as people are going to talk about some deep balls to Jalen Lloyd and stuff, the big success is going to be if they can hit that stuff in rhythm that's short to some of those playmakers. You have guys like Bonner on the perimeter blocking, and a little pass turns into a 12-yard gain, so stuff like that. I'm exactly with you, though. That's going to be big for Dylan on Saturday to just get that feel in the short stuff going early. And I think that could be huge for his confidence in that game and then even carrying forward.
Bruntz, BC mentioned Janiron Bonner. That's a guy we haven't talked a lot about on this podcast this fall camp. His name kind of came up, I feel like, a few weeks ago, earlier in August, but now we see on the depth chart, number one in the slot receiver position. In your years of covering college football, have you seen a lot of wide receiver to fullback to slot wide receiver in your career?
Did Corey Schlesinger, did he have a brief cup of coffee as a slot receiver at any point? I'm trying to think.
I don't think so. I don't know do you think Corey Schlesinger had a single career catch?
Oh, I'm sure he kind of lucked into one at some point.
I'm looking this up. Pride of Columbus. Got to do it.
I'm not sure if he did.
Former garbage man.
Brian Carpenter did. I remember
that
a touchdown against Colorado in the '89. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I think Bonner is an important piece of the offense. I mean, think back to, he had a lot of catches in the NFL. Yeah.
Schlesinger.
Yeah, I was going to say he had no catches in his college career. I'm looking at it right now. He had 127 rushing attempts, 706 yards, 6 touchdowns, no catches.
Yeah. That can't be right. Pro Football Reference might be leading me astray here.
This podcast.
Yeah.
I'm looking Bonner, at college stats, not the NFL.
Oh, okay. But no, with Bonner, I mean, you think back to the spring game, he caught the first touchdown pass. Was a 4-star wide receiver. He was no slouch. As a receiver in high school, he had kind of like a freak injury, didn't he? He had like a pretty significant leg injury from femur. That's what it was.
Femur.
And that probably took some steam out of his recruitment, but he's a 6'2", 6'3", I think 6'2", 220-pound wide receiver. And I think people, when they hear slot, they think Billy Kemp. And if you look at Nebraska's right, and it's Janiron Bonner, Carter Nelson is also listed as a slot. I mean, they want somebody that can go out and block a linebacker if they have to. And I think the fact that he's played fullback helps. I don't know. It just didn't feel comfortable last year with him trying to take on that role. And they're going to move him around and do the positionless football thing. So I think he's going to be a nice piece for the offense, and especially in the passing game for those types of catches that you guys were just talking about. Like if you need somebody to basically go over the middle and make a tight contested catch, it's nice to have somebody with that kind of size to go in there and do it. And especially if, he's matched up with a linebacker or a safety. I mean, that's kind of a tough matchup for opposing defenses. So I think he's going to factor a lot in what Nebraska tries to do this year. And, I think will also help in the run game too. I mean, if you think about this, I mean, you've got Jamal Banks, who's 6'4", over 200 pounds, Isaiah Nair, over 6'4", 200 pounds. and Bonner. I mean, that's a lot of beef out there on the edges, blocking guys. Especially when you compare them to somebody like a Jalen Lloyd, who's closer to about 180 pounds. So that's I think a nice little piece for Nebraska's offense that they're going to try to use a lot.
Anything else we want to get to before we start making predictions?
I don't have anything.
It looks like we're all tired of talking. People are ready for the football. We'll have some more talking here with predictions when we return here on the Husker247 podcast. Prediction time. I think I said earlier that you were going to put scores of games. You don't have to do that. Just tell me who you think wins. If you want to add some color to how the game plays out or any significant moments in it, this is your time to shine. So we will get started. Obviously, we will have the Hypecast coming later this week. Josh Peterson from 1620 The Zone will be joining us. And so we will have that. We'll get into more specific with UTEP. But gentlemen, we'll start with Michael Bruntz and we'll work our way around. Bruntz, is Nebraska going to defeat the Miners on Saturday?
Yes, I am picking Nebraska to beat UTEP.
Nebraska starts 1-0 for Bruntz.
Yes. There'll be some ugly moments. I'm expecting a few ugly moments, but I think they will win, yes.
All right. So Bruntz says ugly win. BC, what do you got?
Yeah, 1-0 for Nebraska. I will say Matt Rhule's, and I think it's genuine because I think he really respects Scotty Walden. Not a country singer, but a good football coach. For like his creative offense and the up tempo they're going to bring. Rhule's done a good job, like I think talking up UTEP and like the dangers they can present in a game like this. And I actually do think they do. They have a few scary parts, but I think Nebraska will grab control of it by late in the second quarter and win by about the spread. I think about 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on this. Obviously, I have Nebraska winning as well. I think that UTEP actually starts a little bit fast. Nebraska has to kind of work its way into the game a little bit, and then their depth and their talent pull away in the third and fourth quarter. So we all have Nebraska 1-0. 1-0. Bruntz, are you going to keep track of these?
Yes.
Okay. You're the stat guy, so we're going to be relying on you.
That's one of those where you're in a meeting and the boss asks some guy to take notes on something. You can tell the person doesn't want to, but they're like, yeah, I got it.
I like in this analogy, I get to be the boss. I appreciate that.
There you go.
All right. Nebraska, Colorado, 6:30 kick. Huge recruiting weekend. Lots of energy in the stadium. I've already had multiple people ask me if I have a line on tickets for that game. I do not. You can stop texting me. I got no tickets. I got no one I know who wants to sell them. I think it's going to be a pretty popular game for people to get to. We'll go in reverse order. I have Nebraska over Colorado. They finished the job this year. They catch the snaps. They don't hit Luke Lindenmeyer with a football inside the red zone unless they're intending to pass to him, not off of a snap. I like Nebraska in this, and I like them to win by double digits. BC.
Yeah, I like Nebraska to win. I don't know what Colorado's going to bring to the table, honestly. Like, I mean, I think Shedeur Sanders is a really good quarterback, and they've got some good skill guys. But I'm curious if they've upgraded or if they're basically the same as last year, and I don't have a very good read on that. But if they are basically the same as last year, which I kind of think they will be, and Nebraska, as you say, does the little things right, Nebraska wins. The key will be Nebraska doesn't have this turn into a restore the order type game where there's like so much build up to it that you just kind of get sloppy and you get in your own head. So it'll be
spread out around the world.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. You got to get past that sort of mental part in this game, I think.
There's a lot of 2010 Texas feels to this. I agree. Bruntz, what do you got?
Brian, you had him on as a win there, just for my note taking.
Yeah, you got that.
Thank you.
Mark it down.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. I think it's a win. I think it's going to be a mixture of 2014 Miami, 92 Colorado. I think there's going to be some stuff in the stadium that night. They're going to be brawling at the Starlight Lounge. I don't know that the res is going to be open again. Maybe they'll open it and close it again. Tip a bus over. Whatever. But I think Nebraska finds a way to get it done. I think they lean a lot on defense. So I think they win that one, and we're off and running.
It still remains hard for me to imagine a fight at the Starlight Lounge.
I'm imagining like something out of like a 1960s novel or something.
Yeah.
Where there's but a couple of guys on the wrong side of town come in there on their Thunderbirds and mix up some things with the Socias.
Yeah, the guy wearing a smoking jacket takes a punch to the face.
Yeah.
That's a fitting reference in a variety of ways because Jay Norvell, who obviously has had a beef with Colorado to some degree, I believe liked to frequent Starlight Lounges to unwind.
Okay.
There you go.
Didn't know
fun
that
fact.
about Jay Norvell.
A little trivia there.
Fun fact. Yeah, I don't say that in a bad way either. I said it's a good place.
Can we mark Nebraska down as a winner for Northern Iowa and move on?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Everyone for a win there?
Yes.
All right. We'll go straight to Illinois. A Friday night game under the lights at Memorial Stadium. Michael Bruntz, what is going to happen?
I think Nebraska wins this one. I've got them getting off to a good start this year, so I will give Nebraska a narrow win over Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini.
BC, how do you feel about what Michael Bruntz just said, and will you be following?
Yeah, I think this will be a hard-fought game. I'll pick Nebraska. Also, I'll just go on the record here. I don't care that it's on Friday night. I'm fine with it. I like Friday night football. Like when Bruntz and I are on the road for some of these games, and it's like I'll ask him, like, is someone playing on the coast tonight? Like you're kind of hopeful there's a game you can go watch. And I know that's not popular to say. I don't want him to do it all the time, but I'm okay with it.
I appreciate that we
both Troy Dannon.
We basically both have Bruntz as our TV guide sometimes when it relates to college football, particularly anything that happens after 8:00 at night. BC and I are just going to turn to Bruntz because that's his wheelhouse. Doesn't even matter which coast it's on anymore.
On a personal note, I did watch 3/4 of that Delaware State Hawaii game. So there you go.
What did you take away from the Rainbows?
I appreciated their hubris of continuing to run and shoot in the remnants of a tropical storm. So there was that. But they handled business against the Hornets and moved on. John Taylor, by the way, probably the most famous Delaware State football alum.
He was good.
There we go. It's a follow-up from last week. All right, so I think Nebraska will beat Illinois as well. I have them as a 4-0 start. I do think that'll be a challenging game, certainly with the start of conference play, and I just think Brett Bielema will have those guys ready to go. And Illinois has given Nebraska fits over the last few years. All right, we move into the first road game. The Huskers go to Purdue Pete's house. Bruntz will once again be looking for the best photo that he can find. I don't even know if it's on the schedule yet. It feels like an 11 a.m. kick in West Lafayette. It feels like it's going to be a slog. It's going to be slow. Ryan Walters is going to have some exotic looks for Dylan Raiola. And Nebraska, for the first time in 2024, will lose. Nebraska loses to Purdue on the road. BC, what do you got?
You had Illinois as a win, right?
I have Illinois as a win, yeah. 4-1.
Okay.
Sleepy game. If Nebraska's 4-0, as all of us predicted going into it, Husker fans will represent really well there. And so I think they could make it almost sort of like a neutral site. Not quite, but I think they can get where it's not a very hostile environment. I'll say Nebraska in kind of a tough game that has people anxious into the fourth quarter, but everybody's enjoying their dinner, and the Huskers are 5-0.
All right. Bruntz?
Nebraska wins a sleepy affair. The weather will probably be pretty lousy as it tends to be there, and they're going to red out Ross Aid. That's what they're going to do. So, yeah, I've got Nebraska starting 5-0, which is something.
All right,
ranked in Nebraska goes into West Lafayette and beats Purdue.
Wow. All right. I'm 4-1. You guys are 5-0. Rutgers.
Okay. I'll say I'll say Nebraska's going to lose one game at home, and they're going to lose to somebody where it's like, man, no, not that one. And so I don't know which one that is. I do this, but so I'll make this that game. I think Rutgers is like a tough out too. Like I just think Shiano's going to has made them one of those programs where you're in for like a kind of a 20-16 fist fight kind of game with them. And so I'll say 5-1, not necessarily because I'm like necessarily believing in that specific game Rutgers is going to win, but I think there's going to be some game where Nebraska trips, and I'll use this one as that example.
I like Nebraska to bounce back here after I have them losing to Purdue. I like the Huskers at home a lot this year for the most part, so that should kind of tip my hand where I'm going. So I have that as a win. I have Nebraska at 5-1 as well. Bruntz?
I have Nebraska beating Rutgers. It's going to be like an ugly score, like a 19-16, like
close your eyes on the scroll kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, some scroll talking here.
Yeah, this is the one. I don't know. I don't feel great about it. Like I feel like Rutgers is always decent enough on special teams. And so I'll lean loss on this one. I think this is the stumble at home. I think they'll be okay for the most part, but it's not full-throated belief in Rutgers. It's just I think at some point Nebraska is going to be threading the needle so many times on these tight games that it's not going to go their way once. So I'll go Rutgers with a fluky win.
I like how you say it's not going to go their way once when it didn't go their way at all last year.
I know.
They could have used just once.
We're threading the needle here a lot, so lots of needle threading.
Yeah. Sewing's going to be big in 2024. All right. Nebraska bye week follows that up with, I believe, a trip to Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So you boys are going to go to Nick's on Friday night in Bloomington. Bruntz is saying no. They're not going to Nick's. They're probably not even staying in Bloomington.
Probably not.
All right. Does Nebraska get it done against what is it? Is it Kurt Signetti?
Yeah, don't you forget it.
You're gonna know his name soon enough.
Yeah.
He won a bunch of games at James Madison, and he likes to talk trash on Indiana's basketball court. What do you guys have for this one? Bruntz, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think Nebraska shakes off whatever happened against Rutgers and goes on the road and beats Kurt Signetti's Hoosiers.
So you're 7-0 right now.
No, I had Nebraska losing to Rutgers.
Okay, so you reversed on that one?
Yes,
you had them winning initially.
I talked myself out of it. That's my stumble. I needed a stumble. I told you I needed to write these things out before we started. I think they rebound and get it done against Indiana on the road. So, yeah.
All right, BC, Indiana, Nebraska.
This is a sneaky
matchup.
If you can call a game sneaky anymore on Nebraska's schedule, which is kind of weird to do given how it's gone, this would be it. And Indiana is one of those teams I'm most interested in that you wouldn't think you would be, just with what he does there and some of those James Madison transfers. I think it'll be a tough game. I'll pick Nebraska to get to 6-1 here, but the stretch of that we just went over at Purdue, Rutgers, at Indiana, if Nebraska goes 3-0 in that stretch for real, it'll be a really good season like that. Because I know they kind of did that last year and then it fell apart in November, but I feel like they need to back that up one more time this year. And then I think they can leap off of that. So I'll say they're 6-1.
That's all three of us are at 6-1. I have them beating Indiana. I don't have strong thoughts on that game. I just think Nebraska's depth will allow them to win. So 6-1 for everybody. And then Nebraska goes into the horseshoe. I will start. Nebraska will lose to Ohio State. That is all I have to say. BC?
Yeah, I'll pick Ohio State. I think Ohio State's is probably the most talented team in the country this year. And so it's going to be tough. And It could be one of those house money games though, where you kind of see what you're made of and how you stack up. I know they won't want to look at it like that specifically, but if Nebraska can be what we're talking about, like 6-1 going into that, that'll be a lot of fun. It'll be like probably one of the games where the studio's on site for it and all that stuff. So they're 6-2 after this though.
Bruntz?
I'll go Ohio State and leave it at that.
That is, everybody is at 6-2. Everybody has Nebraska losing to Ohio State. UCLA comes to Nebraska for the first time since 2013, where Nebraska hosted the Bruins. We're up 17-0, had a chance to put the game away, and then everything fell apart. And then the first audio tape came out afterwards.
Yeah,
and Bo Pelini's career at Nebraska just unraveled.
Kind of.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, it did basically. Yeah, he hung around a while, but
yeah. I mean,
that was a crazy week. Yeah,
but everything that happened from that point forward in 2013 was insane.
Yeah.
What's the butterfly effect of Avery Moss just getting that sack right before halftime?
Yeah, I know. I think about that a lot.
Remember the next
he avoids getting kicked off the team if he makes that sack?
Yeah.
Could it be that big of a butterfly effect?
You think that changes why he got kicked off the team?
Maybe he's not in the convenience store that day. I don't know.
Maybe so.
Maybe he's on a phone call because someone wants to talk to him about the big sack that he had right before halftime. We don't know.
Yep, that's all possible.
I think of that play and also how many yards Zach Zenner would have run for in the game the next week if he had played all 4 quarters. He had like 200 in the quarter and a half into the game, which Nebraska won like 40 points. But anyway, good 2013 memories there.
Yeah. All right, UCLA. I will start. This is the most points Nebraska will score in any conference game this year. They are going to demolish the Bruins at home. That is my prediction. A demolition of the Bruins, who I think are possibly going to be among the 3 worst teams in the Big Ten. Maybe the worst. We'll see. Bruntz?
I've got Nebraska winning that one. I feel like Nebraska should be able to grind it at them on the ground. I've got Nebraska beating UCLA.
Nebraska wins to get to 7-2. I think UCLA and Minnesota are the 2 programs that will be hurt the most over the next few years by this merger.
In Minnesota?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why Minnesota over, say, Purdue or Indiana?
I think Minnesota's a program that they don't quite have the resources others do, and they've kind of benefited from always hanging on the ledge in the divisions as they were set up. And now with that out the window, I don't think it'll be as easy for them to get to the spot they've been that hit that bar. They might for a year or so, but I think over the next few years, it's going to be really tough.
Nebraska at USC at 10 o'clock kick, probably local time. You guys will be at the Coliseum. I'll be at a sports bar in Sioux Falls. Yeah. The Huskers play St. Mary's the next day. What do you got, Bruntz? Lincoln Riley, Matt Rhule.
Yeah, this is one that I had circled as a loss for Nebraska. I think overall Nebraska's got great depth. I think there's a couple of higher end athletes on USC's roster that are going to be able to make a play or two in a game like this. So I'll lean USC holding serve at home.
If this game ends up being like 9 or 10, first off, it makes me think of how much Bruntz has to love this new Big Ten. He should, because like Washington's playing Weber State at like 9 p.m. this Saturday or 10 p.m. I think it's got to be good for him. I'll say USC wins, but more so to get to my final overall prediction, I actually wouldn't be shocked at all if Nebraska won this game. I think it's very much in play, but I'll say USC.
I think Nebraska loses a heartbreaker on the road in overtime where it once again does not score. To keep that alive.
We can do another special podcast on that, though.
We sure can. Nebraska then comes home against Wisconsin. They get the Badgers, a team that I don't know what to make much of. But I like Nebraska with a win against Wisconsin at home. The kind of, shake off. When's the last time they beat Wisconsin? It's been a while, right?
2012.
Yep.
Yeah. So the first time in 12 years, they haven't played every year since then, but they played many of those years. I like Nebraska to win that game against Wisconsin. BC?
Yeah, I do too. I think of the Denny Green, we let him off the hook quote with Nebraska, Wisconsin in recent years.
Which year?
Well, the last two especially. But I think this is the year they get some payback in Lincoln and the Huskers win it.
I also have that as a win. I don't know. It feels like Nebraska for years. It's like you're just waiting to break through in that series. I mean, that series more than most kind of typifies the last 7 or 8 years of Nebraska football. Is like you're so close and just for various reasons can't get it over the finish line. So I'll go with Nebraska over Wisconsin in that one.
Okay, we finish up regular season. I am at 8-3. Bruntz is at 8-3. BC is at 8-3, and Nebraska is at Kinnick Stadium for a late kick, not a late kick, 6:00 kick on the day after Thanksgiving. It will undoubtedly be cold and windy. Gentlemen, what are we thinking? Does Nebraska, we all have them knocking off Wisconsin. Can they get Wisconsin and Iowa in the same year, Michael Bruntz?
No, I think Iowa is able to win just the ugliest of ugly games. If Nebraska goes into Iowa 8-3, you're probably having some. Are we checking Jerry Palm to see if Nebraska's on the bubble? Like 8-3 has got to be pretty close.
I think
so.
You have to, yeah.
I think Iowa's a victory at home on a very cold night in Iowa City. I feel comfortable now predicting like 16-13, potentially with an overtime game where Nebraska also doesn't score. So 16-13, I think, in that one to get to 8-4 with a either a trip to Nashville or maybe Orlando for a little Cheez-Its Bowl. I think that's where things are headed.
BC?
I think Bruntz and I, and perhaps you have followed a similar path here I have them 8-4. And so it's just, how do you get there? So I'll pick Iowa to win this game. It'll be like every Nebraska Iowa game, or it'll come down to the last minute. And like who can pin the other team down inside their 5-yard line and make a play.
I have been saying 8-4 since the spring. I am now saying 9-3. Nebraska wins against Iowa on the road. They get it done. I like this team. So Bruntz brought up what I find to be fascinating. If Nebraska is sitting in this position after a Wisconsin game where they're 8-3, they're probably like 17th in the country, and they're probably within striking distance of potentially being in the college football playoff or on the cusp of that. They would probably need Iowa to be a ranked team to jump high enough up. And I don't know what Iowa's schedule sets up for, but
it's nice.
It could be a really, really important game to determine one of the last spots in the college football playoff. I don't have Nebraska in the college football playoff. I do have them at 9-3. I have them in Bruntz's Cheez-Its Bowl. I have Bruntz in the hospitality suite, just stuffing his face with Cheez-Its every single evening, watching random bowl games. I have Bruntz at Miller's Ale House enjoying an adult beverage with BC at some point. Kicking back
every night.
All the changes they made with the furniture since he was last there in 2013. That kind of thing. So
watching a UFC fight.
Yeah. Who would they play in the Citrus Bowl? Does that match up with the SEC?
You would get an SEC team. Some projections have like a 9-3 or an 8-4 Texas team in that bowl.
That'd be
either way, if you're doing Nashville or the Cheez-Its Bowl, you're getting an SEC program. So
give me Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin versus Nebraska in the year of his father's passing. It'll be a great story. Everyone will love it.
Yeah. Or LSU in Nashville. That would be okay too.
Could my
But you got to go square dancing with Brian Kelly.
Ooh, could be
Did
fun.
they still do the guitar picture? We still got that with Butch Jones and Mike Riley.
I hope so. I would Matt Rhule, Brian Kelly guitar picture where they're both much smaller than you think that they are until you see them in real life.
Yes.
Yeah, that's I'd be down for that. BC, what's your bowl game?
Could my 8-4 line up with the ReliaQuest Bowl, perhaps? And I say that ReliaQuest is a solid bowl, formerly known as the Outback Bowl, correct? In Tampa. But I'll say that game, because Nebraska's never played there, and they'll be like, yeah, we'd love to get them there, sort of deal, and they kind of work it out. And Nebraska would be inspired, I think, to play in such a game, would be up for it, and I'll say they win it to finish 9-4, sort of like Pelini's first year when everybody was pretty happy with 8-4 that season, and they won the Gator Bowl over Clemson.
Yeah, a lot of Pelini talk today.
Yeah,
that was
a little much probably, but sometimes you just walk into it.
Obviously we're many months away from this. How many people have you guys heard have said I'm going wherever Nebraska plays in a bowl game? Because I have heard that a lot this summer from various people. And I do think if Nebraska were to end up in Orlando or Tampa or Nashville, as we have predicted here, the cities would be descended upon by people wearing red. I suspect that that would be a very well-attended bowl. How many people would show up?
Yeah. No, Nashville would be a little scary because it's drivable pretty easily. I feel like you'd get a ton of people heading down there.
Yeah, just everyone wants to take the Ryman Auditorium tour with us and, hang out on Broadway, make the walk over to Nissan Stadium. It's a good time. It's a good bowl game.
No Josh Dobbs this time, but
yeah. No Garrett Johns to win the Wings Challenge either. Nebraska will have to put forth someone else. It'll be an important contest that week. All right. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to add? Remember, we got the Hypecast coming up, so we'll dive into Nebraska UTEP a little bit more, effort, I guess, than we did probably on this one in terms of that game. So we'll go deeper with that. We'll have Josh Peterson there. We're going to try to have podcasts on Saturday after the game as well. Certainly Sunday, the Sunday side session will return. So we're hoping to have lots of things for you to listen to this season as you go through the Nebraska 2024 year. Final thoughts, Michael Bruntz, anything?
No, I do not. I don't have anything else except Nebraska. I do actually have something.
Okay, so he does have a final thought after saying he didn't. Just like Nebraska is going to lose to Rutgers after he said they were going to win.
Yes. Well, I talked myself out of this. I will not talk myself out of. Nebraska apparently has added former LSU tight end Mac Markway out of the St. Louis area.
I got that text as well.
6'4", 250-pound tight end, former 4-star tight end. So there's that.
Yeah, we don't know if he's on scholarship. He's a Husker scholarship. He's just roaming. Is he eligible to play?
All questions that will need to be answered after this recording.
Yeah, so we'll look into that. BC, final thoughts?
No, I'll let it go with that. This has become a podcast of breaking news, it seems. So we'll see if we can keep that trend going throughout the year.
All right, gentlemen, we will finish up here, and we will be back with more podcasts later this week at Husker247. Be sure to stop by Husker247.com. Plenty of coverage leading up to the UTEP game. Plenty of coverage leading into the 2024 season. If you're not a member, great time to sign up right now. Get ahead of the season. You will not regret it with us over at Husker247. We'll catch you next time.